This is JM Productions coming to you live with a biography on Frank McCourt's life. Frank McCourt had a very tough childhood. He had 3 brothers. They all slept in one bed, rolling to the center and fighting the whole night. They had no electricity or heat. Their family was very poor due to his father's actions. They lived catty-cornered from the lavatory, the place where people would take their ways after they'd used a bucket to go to the bathroom in. That's how he got typhoid fever when he was a child and was in the hospital for 3 months. Flies would go in there and sit in the lavatory, then fly into their house and sit in their food. Their house wasn't the cleanest place to begin with. Filth washed in from everywhere, flooding their house with debris and filthy water from the gutters. Their feet were rarely covered, so infections spread fast when they got a cut. Frank's father made life for the family harder. He rarely ever came home at 5 when the bells would ring through the city, and when he didn't, his mother would just sink into her seat because she knew there was no eating for the night or the following. His father spent the money he earned at work on alcohol instead of food for the family. He had a very good sense of humor, though. Frank's mother loved that about him. Frank's mother cared for all of the children. She would go to the movies by herself because that's all they could afford, and when she'd return, she'd tell the story of the movie she saw, word for word, never leaving anything out. He says he can remember this one night in particular. She saw a movie called Reap the Wild Wind. It had John Wayne in it. He was the bad guy.
Frank had a very hard education, and he viewed reading as a treasure. Books were precious to him because they were so rare. He had no high school education because they couldn't afford it, yet he was a high school teacher later in life. When he came to America, he was judged immediately, looked at as a classless, poor Irish man. But he looked past that and still succeeded and became an amazing person in this country. Worked at the Baltimore Hotel at the age of 19, and then was sent to Germany to train dogs for the army. He took the ferry to Staten Island every day for work. Frank taught 5 classes without ever being a high school student himself. He looked at the students as another species because of their behavior. Angela's Ashes tells the story of Frank's impoverished childhood and adolescence in Limerick Island during the 1930s and 1940s. Alcoholism of his father, the despair of his mother, the deaths of 3 of his younger siblings. It takes place in a highly religious society in which the dogmas of Roman Catholicism are accepted without question. 'Tis by Frank McCourt. The book was about his journey when he came to America, starting at the bottom of the list and making his way up to an amazing teacher and a recruiter. It talks about when he gets a job at the Baltimore Hotel and encounters the reality of this classless country. It talks about getting sent away to Germany to train dogs for the war and returning in 1953 and working on the docks.